Hey everybody, this is Tim Hinton. You can call me Beast, and we are talking about the best advice we ever got. Two of my very longtime friends are here. David Enlow, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being here. And Jack Jean is here. Jack, how are you?
Good. How are you, Tim? It's good to see you guys.
I am good. So it turns out, everybody, if you're listening to this or watching,
Yeah.
that we are all French horn players. And it did not dawn on me when I made this thing, but this is part of our connection. So David Enlow, you and I were at the same grade and went through high school together and played in honor bands as French horn players together a lot.
Yes, that's, I mean, honestly, it was like having a district band, and we did it weekly. And so it was a really great group. And the horn section had the most fun out of the entire group. And it was a good horn section.
Yeah, we were great. We definitely were ruling the band for sure. Like we were the elite crowd, or at least we thought so. Not that French horn players are cocky or anything. We're not trumpets, but
Exactly.
I'm in the weeds. But anyway, David, you taught for many. Well, you've taught all kinds of places, but you were in Virginia at one school for a very long time.
Yes, I was at Hickory High School in Chesapeake for 21 years. And that's where I guess I started figuring things out big time and learning how to do things a little bit better there.
Awesome. So Jack Jean, the interesting thing here is that when I left Dunwoody High School back in the 90s, you came in as the next director. And when we met, we were like, wow, we're really similar people.
Yes.
Which is
Exactly
great.
that.
So I'll let you introduce yourself, sort of your quick snapshot of whoever you are, whatever.
Well, I'm originally from Iowa. I moved to Georgia in the early 90s. Like Tim said, he left Dunwoody and I took his teaching job, and we met each other and we became fast friends. And then fast forward to like 34 years later, and I just retired from teaching public school after 36 years of band directing. And my last post was at Brookwood High School in Snellville, Georgia.
Yeah, it's awesome. And Jack, you were very nice to work with me as an arranger and show designer
Yes.
for many years with your bands, and I always appreciated that. And your bands were always played great and made me look really, really smart. So I like
Well,
that.
we were fortunate to have you because some of our high successes were coming from those years that you and I and John and everybody collaborated. Those were some great shows. Wow.
Yeah, that was really, really fun. So here I was just putting together some people that I like and that were sort of in the same ballpark of age and experience and all that stuff. And I thought it would be fun to just sort of share, the best advice I ever got. Some of the best advice I ever got. It's really hard maybe to narrow that down. I've got a couple here, and they're by no means like the best ones or the only ones. But I thought I would see if you guys, what you had to say. So David, I've sort of been going to you first. Do you want to share and start talking about your first thing you came in with?
Yeah, I mean, when you originally approached me for doing this, I thought things would just jump into my head. And apparently I have too much mess still going on up here, and being able to purge exactly what I wanted was a little bit difficult. But of course, over the years, I've received a ton of advice, and some of it's more musically oriented and some of it's teaching oriented. I remember early on when I became a teacher, and it was one of my music ed classes, and we had somebody come in and talk to my class, and they said, and I didn't understand this, but they said, you need to become friends with the school secretary, guidance counselor, and the head custodian. And I'm thinking, how is that going to help me be a band director? And then you start teaching and you totally understand exactly why you need to be friends with those people. So I thought that was great advice.
Well, I concur. That's genius advice. And those are the three most important people in the school. I had the great advantage. Jack, I don't know if this happened to you when you were there, but I had lunch every day with the guidance counselors. Did you have that
Yes.
same thing going on?
They did. Yes.
Man, did that pay off for me? Like, first off, we all liked each other, but like every day, I would sit there and have lunch with them and get to know them, whatever. And so that was hugely helpful because, they're making decisions about who ends up in the classes.
Exactly. Those are really, really important resources for sure.
I love that, David. That's really great advice. And I think I got that very similar advice too. And same experience. Like one day I realized, wow, I think the school secretary is perhaps the most, well, for me at Dunwoody, Jack, where we were, it was Sandra who was
Yes.
Dr. Springer's, the principal's secretary. She was
Yes.
the most important person in the school, and she was wonderful too.
Well, that's kind of seems to be a theme too, because I've been blessed to teach at 4 or 5 different schools for long times, at least 5 or 6 years. And the school secretary and the school bookkeeper, man, those are the people that you need on your side. And, because when you eventually make a mistake, which you will, they'll forgive you because they know you, and being visible in the school and not just some random person.
Right.
I went to Brookwood late in my career. It's the largest high school in Georgia, 4,000 students. And so faculty about 200. So it's easy to become, you don't know who people are in the school. So I made sure when I first went there to meet those people and to make a relationship with them, because even though they'll probably never see me but once a month coming from the basement, at least they knew who I am.
Man, I'm trying to think if I always worked in the depths of the school. Is that like a band room thing? Like, I don't think that's always true, but I certainly used to climb up out of the cave. Yeah.
Yes, we would do that too.
I like it being at the end of the school where they don't usually come down there. And so I felt like I can just do what I need to do and go to the office when I needed to. But otherwise, I kind of had my own little world.
Yes.
Yeah. Leave me alone, everybody. Okay. That's good. Well, we were at Dunwoody. I was certainly down in the dungeon with the football crowd, and getting along with them was also imperative.
Yes.
All right. Very good. So, Jack, what did you come in with? What advice?
Well, I mean, I've been like Dave, I've been teaching a lot and have had a lot of great mentors over my years. And like some of them are musical and some are, like David said, more teaching oriented. But I just remember coming out of college and having a colleague talk to me and talk about being a band director. And it's like, you have to be a master at your craft if you want to be a successful teacher of that. So all my students that went into music, I'm like, hey, you have to study your instrument and you have to be serious about it. When someone hires someone as a band director, they want someone who's a fantastic musician because you're the content level expert. So you need to be the content level expert. Don't just float on whatever you're doing, and constantly try to improve yourself and be the best musician that you can. I think that gets overlooked a lot in some instances.
Well, David, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I learned, I guess, early on through studying privately. And, at first, I think I just kind of ran on talent. And then I started studying privately and with Merwin Chrisman in Atlanta. And, he wasn't a heavy push kind of person, but he really helped a lot and helped my playing out a lot, and just, I guess, basically showed me you have more to offer and you're not doing that. So in a very nice way, he probably pointed out how lazy I was, and it made me want to work harder.
I did not know that you studied with Mr. Chrisman.
I did.
Did you know that he started me?
I think I did, yeah.
He was my 4th grade music band director, and he was a French horn player, obviously, and he encouraged me to play French horn, and I took lessons from him, I guess, almost from the very beginning. So, yeah, I was lucky to have Mr. Chrisman teach me how to play horn from day one.
Right.
So, man, I was a lucky guy. That's amazing. So, Jack, does that resonate with you? Private lesson teachers, things learned, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think, being a good musician is being a good musician, regardless if you play trombone or percussion or you're a conductor. But those lifelong music learners, people that keep trying to better themselves in whatever their music area is just going to reap 100% benefits, whether you're a singer or a conductor. If you're just not learning and branching out and growing as a musician, I think you're making it harder on yourself as a band director, because you have to be the musician in the school. You have to be able to teach the kids that way.
And I'd say I think that's true of any profession. Quite honestly, whatever you want to do, keep learning and be great at it, especially if you're going to try to teach it. Now, having said that, I do think that sometimes people who struggle to learn things are better teachers because it didn't come so naturally to them.
Right.
But still, I expect them to have attained a level of mastery and proficiency and expert, level of proficiency. So interesting. All right.
Yeah,
So
I have former students that graduate or are going to become band directors or band directors, and they're like, "Hey, how do I keep motivating or learning by not having to go out and go to clinics and all that kind of stuff?" I said, "Well, you join a community band or join a community group where you're seeing someone on the podium teaching." I learned so much from those community bands that I with Alfred Watkins and David Gregory and all those guys. Just watching them conduct an adult band is not that dissimilar than teaching a high school band. And you just learn just from being in the room, which I encourage my students to do that all the time. Just go try for a season and see. You'd be surprised at how many things you can take and put back in your little wheelhouse of tools.
Yeah, same. When I was playing with a community band, and I played with the Terrawinds for a while, and then and of course David Gregory can stretch an eighth note to last about 30 seconds.
Yes, he can.
But even up in Virginia, I played, and there were things that Dennis Zeisler said with the Virginia Wind Symphony that I was able to take back. He was the only one that I would ask to come to work with my group, because no matter what, he would have about 3 to 4 pages of notes, and I would go into rehearsal thinking, okay, I've got it this year. We're really good. He's not going to be able to, and he would still have 3 pages of notes. And it was really, it was in a way demoralizing, but it just showed that someone's always better than you, and someone always has a better ear. And it's your job to go out and find those people to help you, because one day that's hopefully, as long as we keep our ears, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be helping someone that just, especially someone who's new to the profession. But
right.
Yeah, I community band was great for me. I would jot things down because I'm like, oh, that's good. I've got to use that. So I think that's all of us. I think we all just keep on gathering information. We filter out what we need to filter out, but then we use what our greats and our lives told us.
Right. Or you stumble onto something yourself, and then you're out in these community groups or whatever, and you're like, oh, he's doing that exactly the same way I teach that. I feel a little bit, okay, maybe I'm on the right track here. Or you get the opposite. Oh, this is how he gets them to play in tune. No one ever taught me how to do this. This is a great experiences for me, at least in my career it has been.
And I have to say one more history note for me, but when I went to Governor's Honors this summer after my junior year, and we were studying, music, David Gregory was there as one of the teachers, and he made a huge impression on me. Like life-changing advice, kind of, this is what a band director is, wow, kind of thing. So yes. I knew him way back in the day when I was just a little elfling.
David got me that job at Dunwoody High School. He was the very first interviewer I had, and he said, he was then in Clayton County. He's like, I know the perfect job for you right now, and I'll call Jenny Springer right now and let her know that I'm going to send you over.
I love that.
Yeah,
cool. Wow, all these connections. It's very cool.
Right.
Okay, well, I came in with a couple pieces of advice that have nothing to do with music or teaching. So, but this is the ones I'm bringing on the table. I'll do my first one, and then I'm assuming each have something else maybe to. Anyway, so my first one is very basic. But somewhere along the line, a speaker on the podium was talking about being very prosperous, and his advice was always keep your money in your wallet really organized. So all the bills face the same way; they're in order, and he always knew how much he had. And he said, and of course we don't use cash as much these days, but I still always have cash on me. He says, if I'm there and someone gives me back my change, I just stand there and I take a minute. And I put them where they go, and I keep them in order. He says somebody may have to wait just a second, but the concept is it shows that it's important and that you're caring for it, and that money is important, and I'm going to care for it, and I'm going to treat it well, and I'm going to use it wisely. And it sort of shows the universe globally, I'm going to be a good I'm going to use my money well, so you can give me more and you can trust me to take care of it. And so I just loved that concept. And so that was a long time ago. And I have done this ever since, even without thinking. You go to the ATM and it spits out all those 20s or something. They're all higgity piggity, all going every different, and I literally just sit there and like fix them all. And then I put them right in there where they go. And like, I feel good that I'm taking care of my money. So it's a very practical kind of thing. And some people may be rolling their eyes hearing this, but it has made a big difference for me in sort of showing respect for the money I have and being aware of it more.
I do exactly.
You do this, Jack?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Where did you learn it?
From my dad. And my dad was like, if you keep your money in order in your wallet, you know exactly how much money you have just by a quick glance, as opposed to, pulling your wallet out and like, oh, here's a 1 and here's a 5. And it's like, you're so organized. And, my dad was an accountant. He was a math person. So I was brought up early to keep things nice in order like that, just kind of convenience. And it saves you time. I still do it.
Yeah, it's become a habit for me. So I've liked that habit. And I like the idea of demonstrating my respect for the money and that I'm going to care for it well. I just think that makes sense. So that's it. I mean, that's the one of the pieces of advice that I think has really served me well. Not that prosperity has necessarily flowed to me in outrageous ways, but I do think I'm showing the universe I'm a caretaker of this in a way that shows respect. So that was mine. Because I've got one more, but David, you got another one you came in with?
I think, I have one that takes an interesting twist. We were taking a band trip one time, and the bus driver, it was a charter bus, the bus driver said, he's talking about going to the bathroom on the bus and starts talking about what you deposit earns interest. And so I kind of took that and I put it towards education, so what we really consider important with the students earns interest. So if we start every rehearsal and we say, hey, intonation is the key or tone is the key, then it accrues. And, we've all had players in our sections that were better than the others, and you had other kids in the section that wanted to be like that 1 star. It's kind of the same thing. I feel like I had to set up what I considered important and what I wanted my students to consider important, and then hopefully that would earn interest. So it's funny that kind of comes from just a bus driver who was taking us on a trip, but it just kind of rang with me, and I loved that saying, what you deposit earns interest. And I just kind of took it to a different path through teaching.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's sort of like this thing about like your students know who you are and what you value and what you know is important, and how you act and how you treat people and all of that. They're really paying attention. And so, David, I'm sure that even without you having to say over and over, the message of what you valued and what was important and what you wanted them to focus on was very clear. And I do think that that's profoundly important.
Well, it's all about developing culture and the culture that you want your group to represent. And I think when I was a young teacher, I got out and I wanted everything to be lined up vertically. And I played all the dynamics, but I didn't do anything in between. And I thought we were great. And it wasn't until when I was doing my master's and I was surrounded by other people who were better than me and really great on their instruments. And just, I guess I started focusing on different things instead of just the technical aspect of things. I went to a workshop all about the inner game of music, and it helped me as a player, because my head would get in the way of me playing, I'd get nervous and I don't want to play this. And so when I had students come across the same kind of feelings, I said, no. All you need to do is focus on breathing. Don't worry about this. Don't think about you're going to miss that note right here. Think about how great your breathing is. Think about how great your tone is. And it wasn't like overly positive or positivity. It was just a focus that where your mind's so powerful, especially students. They're just sponges, and so I think focusing on the right things and developing that culture that you want in your program was. And to think that this all came from a bus driver, I just, or at least, it started with it indirectly.
Well, and all of us being horn players, we can all completely understand that sentiment and relate 100% to, I don't want to miss that note. I don't want to crack that note. Don't think about cracking the note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Tim,
I love that. Oh, I did. I'm not going to start telling stories about my big failures, but
Hey,
you know what I did? When I missed notes and cracked notes was when I got really cocky. Like,
really?
not to tell them, yeah. Like,
yes.
Whenever I was so, I thought I was the thing, and I wouldn't prepare, quite honestly. Like I went into I shouldn't tell these stories. I went into an all-state band one year, not prepared. Like I was just so sure I was so on it, and then I played terribly, and they're all looking at me, and I'm like, oh, great. Anyway. So that was a lesson learned the hard way, is when I got really too cocky and too sure of myself, that's when I started making mistakes because I wasn't preparing. And, every good player knows you need to be ready and be prepared. So that was a stupid high school thing. Jack, I hope you're not appalled at these stories.
Well, there's a fine line there because, I'm probably like David. I get just really nervous. I get really nervous. And so I try to walk that line of being really relaxed. But if I go a little too relaxed and then all of a sudden I don't put the right air, yeah, okay, got to get back on track and get a little more focused. So that's a tough one for me is I try to be really relaxed and it can bite me in the butt sometimes. Yeah, it can.
Well, I am.
Or you think you're counting the rests right and you're not.
Yeah, I am absolutely my worst critic. And so I would get in the way of me being a good player all the time. And I had to learn to get out of the way and focus on different things so I could just, and that's from a workshop. So just continuing to get education,
Right.
And always knowing someone's better and continuing growing. So going to Midwest and going to any other kind of symposiums was totally beneficial, and plus it's fun. You're around others that are wanting, surrounding yourself with others who are wanting to be better at what they do and better at how they do it.
Well, Tim, I think I've been playing the last 3 seasons with the DeKalb Symphony here in Atlanta, and I had the really distinct pleasure to play second to Jason Eklund, who was subbing as a guest principal. Jason plays with the Valley Orchestra and the Opera Orchestra, and just sitting next to him and playing with him, and just the little things that he would do to try to help me it was like having a private lesson 3 days a week. It was amazing. Just the kindness of the professional, and then just the little things that he would say, the encouragements and the try this, and just even at someone at my age still learning and growing from that. It's a fantastic experience.
Can you give us an example?
Okay, so we're playing 3 dance episodes from On the Town. Okay, Bernstein. Bernstein, and it's just 2 horns. So we're playing and we're playing exactly like it looks, and Jason goes, hey, let's play these notes a little longer and play these a little shorter. And then as soon as I heard him do it, I could match him instantly. But he had to tell me exactly what he wanted me to do. And I guess as a principal, that's being a good principal, because that's what you want those sections to match you. But here I was thinking, oh, I'm nailing this, but I wasn't nailing it enough to match him, which was a little eye-opening and a little humbling, but I loved it. It was great.
So it was something really about style
Yes.
that he was bringing to the table that, but that Bernstein stuff is always just.
Yeah, and then
brutal.
he's just really encouraging. Like in the second movement, the second horn plays with the woodwinds, muted horn in the low register, and it's like a solo. So I start playing, and he leans over and says, "Hey, play a lot louder. Play. You need to be their contrabassoon to that woodwind choir." I'm like, that makes complete sense. So I up my volume, round my sound out a little bit more, and he's like, "That's exactly what it needs to sound like." And I'm like, wow, just those images, those kinds of insights,
But what I love about what you're saying is he also had a way of doing that was encouraging and not degrading in any way. Like he wasn't saying, "Oh, you're not doing it right." It was clear the tone.
Right.
Helpful.
No, it was great, and that's what good musicians and kind musicians do, and professionals. They'll encourage and steer you in the right direction, as opposed to some. The big egos would just sit there and just look down their nose at you, which I haven't met many of those, thank goodness.
And I would say that concept usually comes from the desire for a great performance,
yes,
and a great outcome.
Exactly.
So they recognize everybody around me, if I can lift them, and we can all do it better. Yeah,
right. It's funny, that kind of leads into my next thing. Advice I ever got, and it came from my dad a long time ago. And my dad's passed away many years, but I remember growing up as a kid, he was like, remember, no one is above common courtesy. No one. That means putting your cart back at the grocery store, or saying thank you to somebody opening the door, or saying good morning, or just those gestures of kindness. And that stuck with me for my entire life, and everybody has a bad day, but there's no reason to act a certain way to someone, and everyone deserves that kindness and respect, regardless of who they are. And that leads me right back to this situation with Jason. He didn't have to be that way, but that's the way he is, and I appreciated that. He probably didn't even know it, but it was extremely powerful for me, and that's kind of how I try to live my life. Is everyone the kid down the hall who's having a bad day, or the whatever person in your school, or the lady who just cut you off, or or the person who's dropping all their stuff at the checkout, and now it's going to take forever. It's just, you just kind of relax and just choose to be kind. That stuck with me for a long time, what my dad said.
I'm sure he demonstrated that as a model too, obviously, and then you saw the impact of it. I always feel like the checkout people at the grocery store are huge victims, and I always make an effort to try to be especially kind and just look at them. Like nothing makes me more upset than somebody that's on their phone and just pays like they're not even there. That to me is just the most horrible.
Well, my dad played minor league baseball before he got married, and so I grew up as a little league brat. Of course, my older brother played with us. My dad was always the manager, but he was the soft-spoken, quiet manager coach. That was his personality, the talk to you and explain, and just that, as opposed to the yell and screamer coach. He wasn't one of those. And one year I got on a team that my dad wasn't coaching with a yell and screamer coach, and I told my dad I didn't want to play anymore this summer, and he said, "You can quit this team because I don't agree with the way he's coaching. So you're okay." But we were never allowed to quit anything. But that's just the way my dad was to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I shouldn't name names or anything, but I also played in groups where someone was rehearsing, and it kind of taught me what not to do, or it taught me even starting and getting frustrated early on in the rehearsal almost sets a tone for the rest of the rehearsal. It's kind of hard to dig out. And so I tried to make sure, and it took me a while to learn this, but I tried to make sure after that I was not doing the same thing with my students that I had experienced with others in rehearsal. And look, I've gotten frustrated many times and handled it the wrong way. But and one of the things I wrote down was, honestly, I learned a lot of things by all the mistakes I had made. You know, a long career of them, and just knowing what to do and when, and what not to do and when.
I learned those same lessons, and I think about 3 or 4 years into my career, I realized I can't pull the wool over the kids' eyes. I need to tell them. I need to tell them the truth. I need to tell them how it is. I need to tell them if it's good or bad. I don't want to tell them, or not bad, but good, or it needs to be improved. But the kids know when you're not telling them the truth. They know if it's not good, and you're telling them it's great. Then they don't understand, you know. But definitely, yeah, lots of mistakes that I've learned from, for sure.
Yeah, I've never, ever responded well to people yelling at me. And you know, I've sat in some bands where that was the case, and like I just sat there thinking, I'm not doing this. And I also knew that I cannot play well right now because I do not play well in fear.
Right.
ever have I performed well under that kind of fear of performance. Like that's just anyway. So like you said, learning what not to do.
Right.
Some people are very valuable simply as bad examples.
Yeah, and that's another great word of advice. When you make a mistake, own up to it. The kids know you messed up. Don't pretend you didn't mess up. The kids know.
Yeah.
Tell them. Own it. It's like, it's my fault. I said the wrong thing, or I conducted the wrong tempo. You know, it's okay. And they'll laugh about it, and they'll come to you more. They will.
Because you're human.
Yeah, that's part of the connection.
Right. That's why I love watching these honor bands. The kids in the honor bands or honor orchestra, and you watch the conductor, and 99% of them are just like that. They're just like, I messed this up. This is how we're going to do it. And the kids, you can see their trust just goes so quickly towards that when they're just honest with them, you know. Kids, really, it's about trust, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because this leads me to something I didn't write down, which isn't one of my things, but like I've also, the older I get, I wonder if you guys can commiserate on this. The older I get, the more I feel like I need to tell people the truth, even when it's hard for them to hear. And I have to figure out how to do that with some kindness and tact, of course. But like sometimes I work with directors, and like sometimes I just need to let them know, like, you know, this isn't working for you, or you need to do this differently, or whatever. And I think there was a time when I didn't want to have the confrontation, or I was afraid, you know, oh, they might not rehire me or whatever. And now I'm just like, no, that they need to hear this, you know, if I can figure out the right way to say it. Sometimes they're not ready to hear, but I still sometimes have to try. It's hard to figure that out. Do you guys are you finding yourself a little more honest or blunt or right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's come on as of late, because I've always felt like you were saying, Jack, that the kids are smart and they know when we are doing things incorrectly. But Tim, I understand what you're saying. You just don't want to, you know, it's not like it's beating around the bush, but it's like, well, people need to know so they can do something about it. And hopefully they are the type of person, if you're telling them, hey, this isn't working, and, you know, part of this is your responsibility. That's not a bad thing to tell someone. It's really just fact. And, you know, hopefully they'll deal with it. I know that teaching now, it's gotten a little bit more difficult. And there were many times where I felt like the last few years of teaching high schoolers that, boy, I really felt old school, because I would say, oh my gosh, that was not good at all. And I don't mean that ugly, but I mean that as that's not our standard. And I didn't take the time to try to phrase it a different way sometimes. When I do district bands and things like that, I'm a little bit better about that. But with my own kids that I know and I have a relationship with, sometimes I just treated them like family, and that's just, but they were used to it. It's almost like they expected it.
Right. But you're right. The verbiage and things that kids, at least in the last 5 years, the way they react to certain phrases are not the way they reacted to the same phrase 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. And in the last few years, I've had to figure out different ways to say the same thing, as not like play short or play longer, but in the more emotional side of what they're doing. It's like, I bet you can do that better. Some would always think would be a positive, like, here's, you want another chance, but sometimes it's taken as you didn't try very hard, or I'm singling him out as not trying or not being very good. And that's how, a lot of kids seem to want to take the first negative connotation they can from any kind of criticism. And so that's made me change how I teach, honestly, to try to reach them in a different way. Because unfortunately, it's just maybe the way the world is right now is so much negativity that kids, that sort of imprints on them, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're all a little extra skittish.
Yeah.
And actually, so I'll go ahead and say my second thing I came in with tonight, which is interestingly enough is not as easy now in the last few years as it used to be, but I still think it's great advice, so I'm still going to say it. And that is the basic principle of if you don't have a problem with it, nobody else will. So this has really served me well. And if I'm nervous about, oh, well, what will they think of me because of who I am or whatever, I do think it's true that if it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter to them. Obviously one example is I'm a gay man, and sometimes I go into spaces and, oh yes, I have a husband and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, if that's not a big deal to me and it's just, then big deal. Now, like I said, of late, there are people that are sort of hair triggered, ready to react and not be kind. And so I'm a little bit more skittish around that, but I still think the principle holds true. Jack, you were nodding. You agree?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If you're acting like you're hiding something for whatever it is, or if it's a religious belief or a thought or a lifestyle, the kids see through you. The kids know the truth, regardless of what your truth is. And so if you act like you're trying to hide something, they know. 100% they know. So if you're acting like it's no big deal, it's no big deal to them. Honestly, if it isn't. I mean, I've lived the same truth. I know.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think it's really true. Like, I think I react to people that way. Like, if someone has some sort of physical disability, or they have someone stutters, whatever. Like, if they're just like, they're not embarrassed and this is just who I am, and I'm then I'm fine with it too. It puts me at ease.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it always goes back to, especially to young teachers, you have to just be yourself. Whatever yourself is, be yourself and be your best self. And whatever that encompasses in your life and your personality, the kids want something that's genuine. They want something that's real. I think not just the kids, everybody wants people just to be honest and genuine, and the kids will be drawn to that. They will not be drawn to the I'm A but pretending to be B, or I say I believe this but I don't say I believe this in the other side. Kids know, and adults too.
The words a lot of time is just to be authentic, right? Is sort of the way that a lot of people use it. 100%. And what's interesting, I've done all of these interviews over years now with the Marching Around to a podcast, and I do DCI interviews every summer. And it was really interesting because about 2-3 years ago, people kept mentioning that over and over and over about being authentic in front of the students and just being themselves. And of course, if you are your real authentic self and you're comfortable with it, it empowers them to be their own authentic self back to you. And that's a huge gift, especially in musical, group, team things, whatever. So it's interesting that word got spoken a lot, and I liked that. It felt healthy to me.
Yes.
I would think it would be.
Go ahead,
sorry,
Dave.
Jack.
No, you're good.
I would think it'd be difficult to be passionate about something that you weren't being truthful about. You have to be a heck of an actor. And I think just be yourself, and you'll figure out what they respond to if you're doing that and you need to temper something. But I don't know. I can't imagine not. I can't imagine. I feel like I'd be too robotic if I did it any other way.
Well, I think in the classroom, all kids desire a place where they can be themselves and they can feel relaxed. And if your room or your classroom or rehearsal hall is where you're genuine and authentic, then they can be genuine and authentic and feel that they're safer there. And I hate to use the word safe space because that's got such a weird connotation to it anymore. But it's a place where kids can come and be themselves, whatever that is.
Well, and it goes right back to what you were saying earlier, which is, oh man, I messed that up. Give me another chance to conduct this thing. Let's start again. You know what I mean? Like just being real and honest with them rather than trying to put on airs. Band directors at one time had to be this monolithic who didn't make a mistake. And I'm glad we're way out of that now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I was we all grew up during that age. We used to call it the black turtleneck phase, right?
That's awesome.
I had, not my high school director, but I had in drum corps, I had some pretty intense beings that were, I really learned a lot from, and carry it to this day. But I can take that knowledge and I tried to mimic that because I thought that's what we were supposed to do early on. And it took me years to kind of get out of that mode. And I can keep my passion and I can keep my intensity about how important I believe the activity is, or doing something a certain way is, without the other part of the intensity.
Right.
Yeah, I'm totally on that. Go ahead, Jack.
This may be the wrong platform. And if it is, you can just edit this out, Tim. But we probably all hired in the past kids that are on our staff that are just off drum corps tour or currently on drum corps tour. And then they want to teach the high school kids like they're teaching the drum corps kids. And we've had this conversation before. And then they're dumbfounded when it doesn't work. And I probably had, maybe a dozen staff members that we had to teach them, hey, they don't rehearse 12 hours a day every day. So you have to figure out how to reach them with this limited amount of time. Yeah. Warming up for 6 hours is not going to happen, So, and I'm saying that with a little bit of humor too, but we all know.
Yeah, but they have to learn that drum corps kid is a special breed of kid and not your typical band kid. And your typical band kid is way better than your typical kid. So it's
right.
But yet you do have to learn all that. Yeah.
Well, we've transferred that to like the concert hall too. Your All-State kid is not the average kid. So you got to teach the All-State kid also, even though most of the stuff you're playing is probably beneath their technical ability. You got to find a way to reach that kid and engage that kid, because they may be just the most uber talented kid, and we've all had students like that in our career. Some flourish and some don't in those situations.
Well, this is awesome. I've enjoyed this, and you guys have had like a font of wisdom, and this has been just the kind of discussion I hoped it would be. So, David and Jack, I've really enjoyed this. I'll just ask you each to say something to wrap up. If you anything you want to say that recaps something we've said, or this was the thing I think I took away from this the most, or just an encouraging word for anybody who might listen to this. I don't know. David, I'll let you go first since you've been having to go first all night. Sorry.
That's all right. I think don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. I think we get into a mode where and it kind of is a tangent to someone's always better than you. But if you're always comfortable in this nice little place, you're probably not going to grow. And that can be you as a teacher. It'll be you, your group, and how they can advance, or when you're teaching just an individual, it's the same thing. I think helping people step out of their comfort zone is, it took me a long time to do that. But it also is, like y'all were saying, if you're not comfortable being yourself, that's not going to be good. But also you can step out of your comfort zone and try a little bit of this and try a little bit of that. And that can also be a benefit.
Yeah, I like that. Jack, final thoughts.
Well, I mean, authentic, that's the word, right? It all kind of goes back to being authentic in your interpretation, in your feelings, and the way you deal with people, and your creativity, and your, changing your boundaries, all that. Just do it with truth and authenticity. And you'd be surprised at some of the things, or maybe wouldn't be, that you discover about yourself or your path or your musicianship or whatever. You're right. No one gets any better by staying in the box, especially your groups.
Yeah, and directors are terrible about that because they have to do well, and they're under all this pressure, and
Yes.
getting them to stretch. But that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a long career. That's right.
That's a whole nother thing. But directors go out in their stretch. I love that we talked about kindness and treating just everybody with some kindness and respect. And I think that that's hugely important to me in these times. And I really try to pay attention to that in my life whenever possible. David and Jack, this was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.